Life is a roller coaster. I've had my share of ups and downs. I've had my ass kicked. Just a few examples. I've been shot, I've been stabbed, I've been bitten, not by my dogs, of course. 2 3-year-long illnesses, both times pronounced terminally ill. One was stage 4 lung cancer, and then part and parcel of that, I created so much that came with it. Homelessness, severe drug addiction, horrible depression, isolating myself from everybody I know and love, and going through it all alone, except, of course, for my beloved Pitbulls. They've kept me alive. It's been a wild and crazy ride, but honestly, it's been one hell of a blessing. My friends, my dear friends, the WWE superstars, UFC icons and legends, the leaders of the Hells Angels, the Navy SEALs, spiritual leaders, movie producers, musicians, they say I've used up my 9th life. But I know that I have one more left, and it's gonna be the best one yet. Life's simple these days. It's just me and my pups and doing the best I can for myself, for my dogs, of course, and for as many people as I can. Part of that is I love doing my podcasts. I'm told they're equal parts inspiration and entertainment. It makes me feel like I get a chance to give something back. So my greatest hope and my biggest goal are one and the same, to take all these ups and downs and combine these experiences into something that looks like hope, strength, maybe even a little bit of wisdom. It'll all be in my book, Little Big Man, and that drops later this year. Until then, please join me on my YouTube channel at ick Bassman, and please subscribe or listen on your very favorite podcast platform. 3 new podcasts every week, 1 each of the Cancer Warriors, the Pitbull podcast, and Talking Tough. Hey, Mina, how are you, my dear friend?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing?
Oh, other than this little brain cancer, I'm doing great. It's all good.
Yeah.
You know what? I got to say, I'm tired. I had to set my alarm to wake up for this at 7 p.m. But it's like, how much can I do like the poor me thing? I've got my fire on. It's beautiful. I was spooning with Eos on the sofa in front of the fire.
Oh.
I got Wilson here in the chair with me. Life is good. I got a nice glass of Chardonnay. I'm going a little girly with the wine these days. It's all I can handle.
I'm going very manly with the coffee.
I love that mug, the brass knuckles. That's so you. It's so perfect. The brutal person that you are.
I already have a bad enough image, Rick.
Well, look at you. I know. Now you're a skinhead with tattoos. That's amazing. What a Japanese, Cuban, English skinhead. That's perfect.
My hair is growing back though. It's at that stage where it's like I look very gay.
I wasn't gonna say it because that's not cool to say stuff like that these days, but I think if you say it about yourself, it's okay. So
I am, so but I just never looked it so much before.
Hey, that's amazing. And Mina comes out live on the Pitbull podcast. Something new every week. Well, I'm glad to be back here with you. I know there's a lot going on in your world, and the guest we have on tonight, there's always a lot going on in his. You guys both have way more exciting stuff going on in your lives than I do right now. So I'll probably yap a little bit here to get things started. And hell, you 2 kids, I hope will take it away from there. Yeah.
I'm so excited for today's guest.
Yeah. You know what? Me too. It's like I was saying to both of you independently earlier today. It's like 2 of my favorite people in the world, like together on this thing. This is so super cool. And you're both unique in so many ways. So our listeners, our viewers, they know all about you. So I want to do one of my infamous winging an introduction and see if we can set up our guest tonight, who is an old dear friend of mine named Kyle Schwab. And Kyle is the guy, for better or for worse, that is responsible for me being in the Pitbull world. Wouldn't have happened without him. Shortly after I had discovered Marley had been killed and Ramon was still missing, I was just so broken. I had to be around dogs, and I didn't know what to do. So I did a Google search, Pitbull rescue. I think that's what I searched. This is many, many years ago now. And I come up with this thing, kind of dubious sounding, smash face rescue. I'm like, okay, that's good. I think I can relate to that. Boy, did I not know what I was getting into. Holy shit. So here we are, a decade and a half later, at least. And the gentleman we have on tonight his name is Kyle Schwab, as I mentioned before. He is, I want to go as far as saying, absolutely legendary in the world of dog rescue and in being an expert on dangerous dogs. I'm going to put that in air quotes for now, and we'll get you and Kyle to talk about that and expand on that, because
they are dangerous in the wrong hands. So I think it's okay to say dangerous, but
we'll talk about Kyle can dive so deeply into that too. And this guy, he turns around dogs that people have written off. These dogs are on death row and go into the chamber, and Kyle steps in. And that's only a small part of what he does. I mean, as a human being, and I just want to touch on this briefly, he is absolutely one of the funniest, smartest, most articulate dudes I know. And he's also very, very like humble and self-deprecating. So I know he's backstage listening to this going, oh my God, please. And he's probably like blushing if that's, I don't know if he blushes or not, but if he does, he probably would be. And he's like a savant. This guy knows like everything about pop culture. He can build a car from the ground up. He's a master furniture craftsman. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's like the skills and talents he has never ceases to amaze me. But the best part of Kyle, in my opinion, apart from the fact that he's been arrested God knows how many times for beating the absolute shit out of people who abuse dogs, which makes him my favorite person. If there none of these other attributes existed in him, that alone would do it for me.
Yeah, it's what it makes everyone go, yeah.
Exactly. But aside from all that, the reason I talked to you guys for a minute, or said to you guys before we came on that two of my favorite people in the world, is that he's just like such a good dude. So we're about to introduce our audience to a guy I think is the best in the world at what he does with dogs that others have written off, and a badass dude who is truly a great human all at the same time. And I want to bring on my good friend, the legendary Kyle Schwab from Smash Face Rescue.
Hey,
Kyle.
guys.
Hi, Kyle.
Hi. I was privy to that intro, and I don't think I could do that podcast because there's no way I could live up to that.
Oh, there he goes.
My sister graduated college and moved out to California, and a friend of hers followed suit. She told her I had model looks and I could be on the cover of GQ. When the girl showed up at my house, she left.
So you're no stranger to being built up and then not living up to expectations. Is that it?
I felt so bad for her. I'm assuming she was expecting Richard Grieco or Brad Pitt at the door. It was just me. But
Well, you are quite handsome. You're a very manly gentleman.
I was at one time. But that was an amazing intro. And Mina, the world is so big. It's so crazy. In the little bit of free time that I had prior to coming on live with you, the little bit of research that I did, wow. I mean, I didn't have a clue of that everything that goes on here goes on there. And for the viewers, guys, Mina is in Japan, which is crazy. Documentary called Off the Chain. And a lot of it, dogfighting was legal in Japan up until you would know better than me when they
it's only banned in some cities now. It's still they don't want to ban it because they say it's tradition. It's like sumo wrestling.
You know what's crazy? I got a document. You know what's crazy is that the way we go to theater and we dress up and we make a night of it with dinner and the whole look, that's how they go to dogfighting in a country that's going to blow you away right now. Italy. It's held in arenas in Italy with 3-piece suits and ties. I've got a documentary that will blow you away. It's like, what is that event we have in the United States where everybody wears the fancy hats and they watch the horse races?
Oh, the Kentucky Derby.
Kentucky Derby, thank you. That's how dogfighting is revered in Italy. It's like a status thing. Now,
no way. I thought that Italy was really good with dogs.
Well, we can't judge a whole country by the great food and architecture, but I need to go online after the podcast, do my research. I'm sure, because I've been at this for 31 years, I'm sure the laws have changed, but the documentary that I have is shocking, with the double kiss on the cheeks and the girls with the top hats and the guys in tuxedos. And there's 8, 9, 10, 12 rings in an arena, like you're going to a UFC fight.
And they're watching dog fighting.
They're watching dog fighting, and there's food and there's money and it's status, and only the richest of the wealthiest, where in America, it's the poorest of the poor.
Mm. In Japan, it's a family outing. You take your kids and you go out with your kids, and it's like sumo wrestling or just traditional stuff.
What is, before we get on topic, I just want to know from my own personal, what is the flavor of the month in Japan as far as dogs go? I know they love their little dogs in the big cities because of the high rises, but what's trending there now?
I would say like Maltipoos and the small, compact mixed dogs.
Yeah, the Cavapoos and the Lhasa-poos and all the hype. What about the Frenchies? Is it getting crazy over there too?
It's not so much here.
Okay.
Not really.
Interesting. What are the laws in regards to pit bulls in Japan? Are there any?
There are none. No.
There's none because they're illegal. There's none because it's not popular.
There aren't. Well, there has been a rise in pit bulls in Japan, but they're bred horribly here. And even with the Japanese fighting dogs, the Tosa Inu, there's no regulations. You can't not have them. They do have, like, some apartments don't allow dogs over this size or whatnot, but anyone can own anything here.
So no breed specific legislation at all.
Nope.
That's what you said in that blurb to me. Going back to the Tosa Inu, not to toot my own horn, but I hold the record for rescuing the longest dog in the shelter in the world out of the Sacramento shelter. She was remanded to me after he was convicted for racketeering and organized crime and dogfighting. They held this dog for 4 years at the shelter for evidence. And I got her out and she sat on her tail for 4 years. I did 3 amputations. I tried to take off the tip. It didn't take. And then I tried to take it off like a Corso 3/4. And then I ended up going way above the damage. So it didn't get into like her rectal and prostate. Ended up doing like a Rottweiler crop on her. And I got her an incredible home with 2 prison guards who were married, a man-woman marriage, and their kids. And the dog is bomb-proof because what happened was after 4 years at the shelter, she was starting to show signs of cage rage.
Mm.
The shelter decided to bring in this organization. I would love for Rick to give a shout out later when this is edited to this organization that goes in and socializes and works with shelter dogs to make them more adoptable. And this organization for 4 years sent a different person in every day to go. By the time I got her, I didn't do anything. She was turnkey. I would love to take all the accolades and everything. She was turnkey. When I say turnkey, cats, kids.
Wow.
And you know, evidence dogs in the United States, they get held until they're convicted or they're not convicted, because if they are not convicted, they have the right to that dog back. So they held her for 4 years and she was a Tosa. The thing is when they raided him and they took the dogs out of the fighting ring, she wasn't part of it. She was his personal indoor dog at his house. So when she was confiscated at 6 months old, she had no aggression, no bite marks, and he never planned on fighting her. He paid big money for her, and her name was Big Mama.
Hey, guys, one quick thing for each of you. Mina, will you explain to our viewers who aren't familiar what a Tosa Inu is?
Tosa Inu is from Kyushu, the part in Kyushu called Tosa, and that's where they were originally bred. They're just the Japanese dogs, like the Akita-gen and the Tosa Inu, they're all named after the places that they originate from. And the Tosa is probably the biggest Japanese fighting dog there is. They're called the sumo dogs, and I had one myself as well. I had a Tosa and a Pitbull were my first 2 dogs. And
I remember that photo so well of the thread. I love that photo. I'll have to send that to you, Kyle. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they like I said, what is an evidence dog? That's what I was going to ask, because we don't have that over here.
So I don't want to take up the whole podcast. So in the United States, evidence dogs can range from something simple as not providing medical, which would be $1,000 fine and 1 year in prison, which has never happened, to like a woman named Sheila Aragon, who was just caught with malnourished, emaciated dogs, 3 of them that she was sleeping in bed with for months that had died months ago, that she told the sheriff's department were roadkill. Roadkill in the United States are animals that are on the street that are dead. I always make a habit to pull over and pull them to the edge of the road so they don't get run over. But she said they were roadkill, but when we scanned the microchips, they scanned back to her and they were her personal dogs that she starved to death. So those dogs will remain in custody until, well, she's been tried, but she hasn't been convicted. So there's a good chance well, I hate to say this. I'm going to say it. I guess Rick can edit it out later. She's white. She's got no tattoos and she's a first-time offender. So she's going to walk. So she's not going to do any time because we're letting rapists and murderers out. There's no way an animal abuser would do time. But that's a thing. But here's the thing. So I was involved in a case in 2014 where I took 202 dogs off a property until the owner pulled a gun on me and I had to call in for backup. And the Animal Cruelty Special Task Force and LA Animal Services, the fire department, LAPD, and SPCA got involved in this thing with me. And they did a raid on the property without telling me because I'm not a government employee. And by doing that, they were tipped off by a shelter employee and they fled the property. They should have involved me because I was in the back door with these people playing nice, and I would have kept them on the property, or I would have been there to let them on the property. And I ended up getting tipped off and I got into a high-speed chase on Sepulveda, which is the longest street in the world. And I chased them down and I cornered them in a parking lot and we were able to make the arrest. And those dogs, the judge in that case, the evidence, there were 64 or 67 evidence dogs and only 2 were euthanized. One was weird. It was a very extremely human aggressive pit bull, which just really never exists. They're normally, their aggression is skewed towards other dogs. And the other one was suffering from cancer, which is nobody's fault. But at the day of the 67 dogs, 65 were put into evidence. Now, that's where a lot of my hate started because I dumped these dogs at the shelter. If you take an evidence dog and you take it to your private vet and you spend $20,000 to fix its 2 broken legs, you cannot bring criminal charges against that person because that vet, Rick, Dr. Slayton, for example, Dr. Slayton is not a government employee. So his evidence and even if you showed pictures of plates and screws and pins doesn't matter. It has to be a city or a county shelter where the veterinarian is employed by the government to bring charges against that person. Otherwise, it's so everybody that goes in, all these crusaders where I live that hate me, that say don't put them at the shelter. No, put them at the shelter. Pull them in the shelter, put them is one part of rescue. You have to be an advocate. And if these people would stop talking trash and they would listen for a second, because you can't listen when you're talking. Hayden's law states that any animal turned into a shelter for evidence, A, cannot be euthanized, B, they cannot euthanize for space in the United States to make room for an evidence dog. The dogs that get euthanized at shelters and all these people that bash shelters should be bashing the owners of those dogs. Dogs at shelters that get euthanized are old. They've been there too long. They have medical or they have behavioral. This is a numbers game. So when I put these dogs at the shelter and one of the shelter employees made a post that 64 dogs were euthanized to make room for mine, simply not true. My dogs were kept in the hallway in crates and they were walked by volunteers. So I was on the stand for 2 years. I was a government subpoenaed witness. If I didn't show up, I would have gone to jail myself, because if you're a government subpoenaed witness, that was wasted 2 years of my life, because the day I took the stand to show my videos and my evidence, they pled guilty. So that took 2 years of my life and I've been hated on ever since, and I could care less about those people. But what I wanted to tell you about evidence dogs there's a new law in the United States. And the judge in this case, it was called, I'm not going to mention names on this podcast. You can anybody that watches this can Google Arleta hoarding case. ARLETA. That's me. That's my gig. I'm not going to bash these people. They have jobs. They've paid their debt to society. They have families, and they've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to de-index themselves from the internet so they can't be searched. But if they pop off and I see them saying anything about me, I'll put them right on my page again and make them famous like they were in 2014, because I simply don't care. But the judge that presided over this case, there's a new law passed around 2015 or 16. If the dogs that are taken in as evidence are in such deplorable condition that the judge deems them unsalvageable or needing medical attention, that judge, now they have given the power to judges to, let me think of the right word, it's a legal word. That judge can make the owners of those dogs forfeit those dogs to the state or the county, regardless of the outcome of the trial. So whether they're found guilty in a year or two because they have a good defense, or innocent, they don't get those dogs. And these dogs, because of my videos and everything like that, he exercised his rights and he forfeited those dogs about 2 or 3 months into a 2-year trial. That's a good judge. Because if he didn't forfeit them, we have a 3-dog limit. What are they going to do? Take 64 dogs back? When I raided the property, they had 1 bag of dog food with 67 dogs on the property, and it was diet food that her boyfriend had stolen from the veterinary clinic he worked at. So that's what an evidence dog is. But here's the thing. There's other types of evidence dogs that have nothing to do with animal cruelty. There are stolen cars that have dogs in them. There are people that die of a stroke or a heart attack, and their dog goes into the shelter. That's an evidence dog, but it's by no fault of the owner. And then 10 days later, the next of kin has right to that dog. So people say evidence dog, they always think it pertains to animal cruelty. It doesn't. There's suicide. There's natural death. There's all sorts of ways that a dog can end up as evidence. If you steal a dog and you get busted, you don't get the owner doesn't get their dog back. Their dog gets entered into evidence, and then they legally adopt it out of the shelter for their own safety so that they have a contract with the city and the state proving ownership. It's the right thing to do. It sounds twisted, but it's good because it's like registering your car when you get pulled over. It's in your name. So they make you do it that way. It's good. It sounds bad, but it's a good thing.
That's really nice that you're working with the authorities, and you've got I could go into that, but I'm not.
Let me grab onto that and kind of shift only a little bit. So you mentioned about, you and I, Kyle and I love to talk about like tough guy stuff. And Mina's a tough guy also, so she'll really.
I was about to say, and we don't.
So Kyle, you talked about like when you went and raided this place. You're pretty famous or infamous, whatever you want to call it, for like getting physical when dogs are in danger. And a lot of these stories have found their way into the Los Angeles media and whatnot. Can you
I mean, there's video. The videos of a lot of my fights have been taken down, but a lot of them are just indelibly marked on the internet. And I really don't care.
Oh, I think it's great, man. The show I want to make, the revenge show about people who abused. I'm all for it. So tell us a couple of tall tales, would you?
I'll tell you in a format for me that I'm allowed to, because my father, so I could have a better life, paid a large sum of money to have my record what's called expunged.
Yep.
So if I were to get pulled over, let's say for making a right-hand turn illegally or talking on my cell phone, LAPD can't pull up my crimes.
Right, it's expunged.
But if I were to do something of a nature terroristic or a rape or a murder, there are 2 entities that can pull. That would be the FBI and the FBI. There's one other entity that has access to those expunged records. People think their records are expunged. Nothing's really ever expunged. It can.
Right, so it's there somewhere. So what would we find?
You would find things that would affect my ability to work for another company. Let's say a job I just put in to be an operations manager for a very large 501c3 nonprofit dog rescue. They want me on as an advisor for the behavioral dogs that get returned.
Mm-hmm.
And that would, if they ran a criminal background, that doesn't show up anymore. These are things that everything's a liability these days. For me, I'm proud of what I never hurt anybody that didn't hurt a child, an animal, or a woman. So for me, it's an eye for an eye. I've never been in a fight at a club or a bar, or never, I usually let people touch me first, but it is what it is. I mean, but anyway, my dad paid a lot of money to have those records expunged. It slipped out on the internet many years ago. And my therapist said, you need to take it and post it yourself, because you need to take your power back and then explain to people why you did what you did. And that's what makes you who you are. And look, I've had people Google me and not show up for adoptions because they don't like the name Smash Face, which is just a play on Brachyphysalis dogs, short muzzled dogs.
Yep.
And my rescue was named by Carol Raphael Davis, one of the most famous animal advocates in the world globally. And the other thing is, somebody saw my arrest record and didn't want to adopt a dog. And you know what? That dog went into a better home in Camarillo with a family and another dog. So the hate we were talking about, Mina, before we went live. Listen, if you have a voice, you're going to get hate. And if you're quiet and you walk into a shelter and you put a dog in a home, you're not going to get hate.
Mm.
Mina, let me ask you a question. I know it's a world away, but it is Asia. And I was wondering if you were privy to this story, which is really sad. There was a woman, a young woman. She was attractive. She was Chinese. And she was the director of a shelter in China. And she's the one that had to make a decision based on the metrics of what she was handed every week. How long has this dog been here? What is its behavioral notes? Is it green, no behavioral, yellow, slight, red, meaning it's a danger? Does it have a bite history? How many somebody at the end of the day needs to make the decision of what dogs get euthanized and what don't. This is a job. These people don't enjoy their jobs. This woman was bullied online for years. People were calling her a dog killer. She wrote a note and she blew her head off. And she was an incredible voice for animals. Her shelter in China, where animals have zero rights, was one of a kind. She messed with kennel cards. She moved dogs from one kennel to another. She fucked with the dates that they came in to give them. But at the end of the day, if you have 100 kennels and you get 4 adoptions, but you get 10 relinquishments, that's a net of 6 dogs that have to get put down. She killed herself. And you were talking about getting hate.
Yes.
No idea what we go through when they bully us because we're tough online. We're humans when we're not online. I suffer from anxiety at night. I don't sleep. When you guys are winding it down, I'm getting agitated and winding it up, thinking about these people. But the best thing to do is ignore them, do your thing.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
But Rick, going back to your question, look, there was a guy that was bringing his dog to the Laurel Canyon Dog Park to fight it. And I always missed him. And
bring the dog to fight at the Laurel Canyon Park?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I wish I came across that guy.
Is that the Great Dane?
That's the Great Dane. There's a video of me scrapping at the dog park 2 years ago. Animal Planet, Discovery Channel came up there with me. Guy just attacked me on camera. I'm glad it was on film. I just tossed him to the ground and said, listen, if you get up, you're going to get hurt. So you need to stay there. That's it. I'm not going to hurt somebody just for the hell of it. So, but the thing is, look, he was bringing his dog up there to fight. I always missed him. I was either there an hour before, an hour and after. And I did something really dumb because I don't know every law. I laid in wait. Laying in wait is a felony. I hid in the bushes. And he got there. And sure enough, he put his dog on this girl's golden retriever. It might have been a Labrador. I think it was a golden. Dog was about 6 months old. His Dane was like 180, 160, 180 pounds. And I separated the dogs and I put a slip lead on his Dane and I handed it to another person at the park. And then I went over to exchange words with him. And when he went to swing on me, I hit him. And, I didn't break his jaw. When he fell, he hit the ground because he was already out. So he broke his jaw. So now I've got this $76,000 payout on my record from my insurance. So my show on Discovery Channel got canceled. My book deal, everything gets canceled. Well, if Dog the Bounty Hunter has way worse of a record than me, but sometimes he had to hurt people for justice. But dog never hurt anybody for no reason. But if you're knocking on dangerous people's doors, you got to defend yourself. Dog's the real deal.
Yeah.
But the thing is, look, the guy got everything that was coming to him. His girlfriend slapped me in the face and I didn't see it coming. And I was really woozy and I lost my equilibrium. And my sister's boyfriend was there and he put his arms under my arms until I could gather myself. So that's it. So I did the time. I paid the restitution and I got banned from the park for 2 years. But I went anyway. I went every day. I don't care.
Well, I never heard about this Laurel Canyon Dog Park situation.
They're not going to control the dog park. And then, the guy at Runyon Canyon kicking his pit bull in the stomach. First, he killed a rattlesnake. You could just take a rattlesnake with a stick. You could throw it down into the valley. You don't have to kill it. So he's killing this rattlesnake with a rock, and he's dismembering it with a rock. And then his dog was trying to get at the rattlesnake and he started kicking her in the stomach and she started bleeding rectally and out of the mouth. And this girl intervened and he slapped her in the face.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there watching this with a friend of mine who I'm not going to mention. I don't want her 501 to be, she's too famous and I don't want her 501 to be involved in this, but she's like, are you going to do something? And I'm like, I'm going to see how this plays out. And the boyfriend went up to talk to him and he knocked the guy out. So I met up with the guy in the parking lot at the top of Runyon. I was waiting for him and I handed my dogs to the DWP worker. Sorry, they're not DWP. They were the workers that were putting in the sewer in the street. I don't know what that is, but I handed the dogs and I approached the guy. She was bleeding out of her ears and her nostrils and her mouth and her rectum. She was a white pit bull. I sent you the photo of my hand. Needless to say, my hands are all bionic. I mean, my hands have been plated so many times. You're in the fight game. You know how easy it is. Boxer's fracture. Super common injury. But when there are no gloves, your hands just shatter.
Yeah.
So I pummeled this guy and took his dog, and I got the dog to animal control. And the story is really interesting. He comes to, and he starts walking down Mulholland without a shirt on. And this girl is coming to hike. This really fit Playboy type model looking girl is coming to hike with their top down on her convertible. And I've never been on your podcast before. I'm not sure what I can say and what I can't say.
You're okay.
Took out his private parts and he rested them on her door, on the passenger side of her car when she was putting the top up and rolling the window down. This guy's a bloody mess. His face, he's unrecognizable. Obviously on something, because any human with the amount of times I hit him would have been unconscious, but he wasn't. So I ran over there and I clotheslined him, old school WWE, and took him down. And that's when the he wasn't arrested by LAPD. It was the park rangers that came. It was the park rangers. And that's it. Cut to the chase. About 2-3 years later, I'm at this place called Rockin' Sushi Dan eating. The owners are Korean, Japanese, and they were my landlords that rented me my house in Studio City. So I'd like to support them and give it back and eat there as often as I could. And I'm sitting there and there's a guy with his girlfriend and she keeps pointing at me. And I'm literally, I can't eat and I'm shaking because this guy is a monster. And I know what she's doing. She's one of those pot stirrers that's going to, hey, this guy's looking at me. You know the guy because you're in this game. I don't know his last name. His name is Dan. He was one of the original American Gladiators. He's half Asian.
Oh, Dan Clark, Nitro.
Dan Clark, cancer survivor. He's a good dude. He had a heart attack survivor.
Yeah. So he's a good guy. Yeah. And
pointing at me, and I'm telling my friends, they all in Glenn. I said, "That's Dan from American Gladiator. This guy's gonna shred me. I mean, I'm tough, but I'm not that tough, right?" And Dan's looking at me, and he motions, and he does this from across the restaurant. And I almost started crying from fear. And I'm not going to not come. I'm not going to not go over there. But I have there's a lot of trepidation and I had a lot of reservations about going over there. So I asked Dale and Glenn, you guys have my back? And thankfully, Glenn's a professional hockey player. Those guys are crazy. And they said, yeah. And I went over there and he sticks out his hand and he goes, I just want to thank you for saving my wife's life. And I'm like, girlfriend. So that was the girl in the car. She recognized me.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
So at the end of the day, we spoke for about 5 minutes. I was completely just very touched. Told him I watched the show growing up as a kid. And then he left and he said goodbye. And then when we went to pay, he took care of our bill.
Oh, nice. How cool.
He's a good dude. He's a real good dude. He's a dog lover.
Yeah, I know Dan. Yeah, of course.
What does he have? Labradors? I think he's got labs.
I don't remember. I am not sure.
Yeah.
He was on my other podcast, Talking Tough, not too long ago.
He's a good dude. Was he ever a fighter, or he just did American Gladiators?
American Gladiator.
Yeah. But athletic.
Yeah. Absolutely. And he looked the part for sure.
I was terrified. You know, I'm only tough when I'm angry. He called me over, and had he started with me, he would have pummeled me because I need the adrenaline. I need something that, you know,
fuels your fire.
Get me going.
So Kyle, what is the state of pit bulls in the U.S. now? And the reason I ask that is such a big question. You know, in my mind, I've heard you say recently a few times in different conversations we've had that the target's not as much on their backs as it used to be. My experience was different, but I would defer to you. You would know a lot better than I would.
The target is there. The popularity is not. So the numbers are down.
Right.
But hey guys, quiet down. So the numbers are down, but the target is there. I adopted a pit bull named I can't think of his name right now. I adopted a pit bull around 2004 to my buddy Wagner Pereira. He's a Brazilian film editor, and I wouldn't give him the dog. And he chased me down, and I wouldn't give him the dog. I didn't like his look. I didn't like him. I didn't like anything about him, and I judged him. And he said, I want you to come to my house and see what I do. I went to his house, and that dog was there that day, and that dog lived a life of luxury and had the best life. I misjudged him, which just never judge somebody by their looks. And, you know, a couple of years ago, Wagner reached out to me crying, and he was on his way to the vet, and he said, Diesel's dying. And I said, well, I'd like to see him before he goes, because when I adopt a pit bull, I'm usually there with my adopter when they die, if they're in state and I'm available that day. I like to be there for the euthanasia, not any other breed, just my pitties. And I said, how long do we have? Weeks, months? He goes, what are you talking about? He says, I'm on the way to the vet now. Well, thankfully his vet is in Van Nuys. And when I got there, he asked me to film it because he wanted me to send it to him so he could make a documentary like Greg Plitt did when Greg's pit bull died. Remember Greg Plitt, the fitness model? Yeah, who died on the train tracks? So I filmed it with this very phone that I'm holding with you. And then I get home and I go to send it to Wagner, but it's 42 minutes. So it's too big. Hey guys, quiet down or you're going to Rick's house.
Wilson just shut my light off, by the way. So
I
he's going to be on a tear.
Peaceful, beautiful euthanasia, because the dog had lymphoma. So it went so fast. He was ready to go. He had the sunken in mandibular, cranial sunken, his eyes. Wagner did the right thing. He's not one of these entitled white, I'm going to let my dog, I'm going to make it breathe through a straw and give it fluids until it passes naturally. He did the right thing. So he asked me to film it. So it was like 42 or 46 minutes, and there was no way for me to get it to him. I couldn't figure out how to get it to him. So I tried text, I tried email, I tried Dropbox. There's just no way to take a file that big, because we handed the phone around to everybody in the room, all his businesses, and everybody had talked about a little anecdotal story about Diesel. A little, like when people die, how you celebrate them in life. It's a beautiful video. It's a really good video. And I thought to myself, I know what I'll do. I'll upload it high definition from my Wi-Fi to my YouTube channel. I'm not even a popular YouTuber. I have like 10,000 subscribers. I only use YouTube when somebody can't train with me because they're out of state or out of the country. I'll make a tutorial video and then send it to them and then they have to report back to me, and then they'll pay me via Zelle or Venmo, and I can train dogs all over the world. That's the only time I use it. So I used it. So he's an editor. He has a program called YouTube Grabber, so that he can grab video. Well, I forgot to delete it. Now it pays me every month because it's got 5 million views and it's viral. And now I'm on TikTok. I watch TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. It's all over TikTok. People are grabbing it. But my point in this whole story is there are 5,000 comments. I'm going to say half of them are disgusting. Oh, look, another child is safe. Oh, that dog, why spend the money on ketamine? He could have taken a bullet to the head. Oh, fuck that. I would have let him suffer. He's not thin enough. You're a piece of shit. Who posts things like this? You're a sick fuck. Well, I used to answer these people. I don't have the time. I don't have the time or the energy for ignorance in my life. Euthanasia is real and it's the right way to do it. And this whole trend, Mina, I don't know what's going on in Japan. There is this weird movement in the United States to let your pets go naturally. Who does that?
They do this. This has been a thing in Japan for so long.
What?
It's really hard to find vets that will actually put your dog to sleep. We had to do one in December. She had a massive tumor on just under her anus, like between her anus and her vaginal opening. And the vet said that the surgery is going to cost 700,000 yen. She wouldn't eat. She was miserable. So I decided, okay, it's time for her.
For the people watching the podcast, 700 yen is what in US
Oh,
dollars?
700,000 yen is like 7,000 US dollars, I think, something like that.
There as it is here, it's expensive.
Hey! And yeah, so it's really hard to find a vet that will actually they want to do the whole thing. I mean, they're leeches over here because they want to earn as much money, and they keep your dogs alive even when it's not humane anymore.
No. Rick, you're familiar with Aroma Cafe on Tahunga, right?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Where everybody lines up and eats the good food, very dog friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So when I lost my furniture stores, I lost all my kennels. So there was a guy that would come to my stores. I was a furniture manufacturer and a designer, and then I was a retailer. Every one of my retail stores had kennels in the back, licensed by the city kennels that were inspected, real kennels. I lost the store. I lost my kennels, and that's why my rescue hasn't grown. I'm just this little independent guy with a big mouth. But there was a guy, and he used to come and he volunteer and walk the dogs that were in my kennels behind the store, because when I went home at night, I could only bring so many home, plus my personal dogs, so they would stay in the kennels. But they had sofas and chairs, and it was covered and heated. He was a great guy, and he was an animal lover. He was a cat person. He had like 4 cats, and he was a great volunteer. And he was a little, he was on the spectrum, but extremely intelligent and kind and very responsible. No dogs ever slipped their lead. And my store obviously was a retail store. So on a main boulevard called Ventura Boulevard. I close my stores and I go to eat at this cafe that Rick knows about called Aroma Cafe. And I bump into him. His name is Stuart. And I bump into him and he's all excited to see me. I'm excited to see him. And it had been a couple of years. And as you know, in rescue, there's nothing uglier than a cat dying. Dogs, embolism, aneurysm, cancer. We put cats, that renal failure, that kidney failure, they just, it's ugly compared to a dog. It's ugly. So I was talking to him at Aroma and I said, how are your cats? He says, I'm down to 1. I said, yeah, it's been a while. I haven't seen you. How did they go? How did they go? And he started telling me about how they stopped eating. And sometimes they would hang on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I said, wait, now I didn't want to say anything. It's a public, and he's on the spec. There's lots of weird. I was also with people, but I came home and I blocked him on my phone. I blocked him on social media. He was telling me that it was taking them weeks, if not months, to die. Like you telling me you just had a gluten-free tofu donut from Japan. Like, I mean, it was like he didn't even there was no conscience there. And he told me that he had seen it online and it was the most humane thing you could do. To me, that's animal cruelty.
Yeah, I have opioids here for cats because I have cats with leukemia, and I only take in terminally ill cats, so they all have an ugly ending coming up. And so I have a stock of opioids that are for cats, not humans. And then at the end, I just inject them with, and they go into a dream state, and it's over nicely.
So
They
in other
just,
words, you're ethical and you care. I want to ask you guys both a personal question. Are you guys fans or not fans of Kevorkian?
what's that?
I'm a big fan. Kevorkian was a doctor, a licensed MD in the United States, who developed a suicide machine for people.
Kyle, let me give you my answer real quickly.
Okay.
All right. So, I've got my end kind of like all planned out. It's all revolves around my dogs, and they're all going to be incredibly well provided for. No one's going to a shelter, and I know why that's sometimes a good thing to go, as you explained earlier. For me, dude, a beach chair, a great bottle of red wine, and a giant bottle of sleeping pills, and a giant bottle of narcotic pain pills, and I'm gone on the beach. Dude, I'm all for it. Absolutely.
Thank you. Beautifully stated. And if you have the sound mind and physical ability to do that for yourself, because that's your choice.
Yeah.
I think Kevorkian worked with people who were no longer mobile or ambulatory. So they were able to put their finger on the machine to allow the drip. And he was either loved or hated. There's no in between Kevorkian. They called him Dr. Death. He's amazing.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I know who it is now, because I had an uncle that got really sick, and they kept him on life support. He was a vegetable for 2 years before he passed away naturally, and it was ugly to see, but my family wouldn't take him off life support.
Hard on the family, and we say they're vegetables, but we don't know their frame of mind if they're conscientious.
Exactly, yeah.
We don't have that technology yet.
Do not resuscitate.
Right
DNR. Yeah. Sorry, Kyle.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, DNR, do not resuscitate. No, thank you.
Yeah.
It's time, man. And it's like, I've told my friends, like, if things like slip through the cracks and I end up in a hospital bed, I go, the last thing I want to do is wither away and die in a hospital bed. I go, please, when no one's looking, put a fucking pillow over my face. Just like finish it off. Absolutely. All for it.
People are so brave. I have a fear of death, and I've gotten better over the years. I'm on TikTok because I don't have TV because the news exacerbates my anxiety. So I do TikTok at night, and I've got my algorithms right where I want them: fitness, nutrition, and animals, and a little bit of car stuff. I'm watching a lot of people with TikToks that are terminally ill face the camera and talk every day about their journey with death, and they're either not scared and they're stoic, or this is a coping mechanism. I'm not sure, but I'm not crying. They're not crying making the videos. I'm crying. How do people do that? How do they stare at the camera and not chronologize? What's it called? What's the word, Rick?
Yeah, I don't know the word, but I can answer your question for you though. It's I think it's somewhere between a coping mechanism and what was the other things? Oh, and having no fear. Like, for me right now, I'm dealing what I'm dealing with. It's like I would sit here and look at you guys right through the camera eye and say, I swear to God, I have no fear at all. Because maybe that makes me sound, I think it makes me sound cool to say it. I don't know.
Mind over matter.
Yeah, for sure. But the bottom line is I hid this diagnosis for a while, and I'm pretty public about it. And it's like, it helps me to process what I'm going through for sure. But also, it's like they say, and we're getting way off the Pitbull podcast, but that's all right. We can do this for a minute. And then I don't want to do some Pitbull stuff for sure. But Kyle, I'd say this, the more that I can talk about it and find the positive side of it. What's the positive side of going through something you're to die from? Well, you learn things while it's happening. You learn to put things in perspective. You learn to do things like not watch the news, which you said a moment ago, because it just poisons your brain. You seek out positive things, which makes your brain feel better. Maybe you change to a vegan diet, which I did, although I still drink my wine and my sake.
Are you cancer podcast? Are you going to talk about how animal protein can exacerbate cancer? Are you going to?
You know what? I don't know that we'll talk about that. If it comes up, we would certainly,
Okay.
Absolutely, because that's pretty well known fact at this point. Yeah, absolutely. But dude, it's like when you get to a point, and I think about this with my dogs, man, because you know better than I, and Mina knows better than I. Dogs don't have that rational thought process. I know Wilson doesn't sit around and go, "Oh my God, I used to be able to see, but now I'm blind. I'm so sad."
They're in the moment.
Exactly. So that's exactly it. So for me, it's all a process of really doing my very best to be in the moment. And as cliche as this may sound, it's like just appreciating what you have and what's around you, as opposed to the opposite, focusing on, what's lacking, what's missing, what I don't have that I think I need, so on and so forth. And life is good. And when it's time to go, it's time to go. Anyway, I'm way off on a tangent now.
Guys, I'm going to give you 2 seconds to talk shit about me. I'm going to switch play groups. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Right. Switching play groups. Kyle has a massive monster Corso there now, a Cane Corso.
Oh, I think I've seen photos.
Yeah, he's posted quite a bit about it. This dog was one of those dogs that and he pulls them from like the East LA shelter, which is the gnarliest shelter there. I'm not sure that's where this one came from, but he pulls them from the shelters that the people don't want to venture into. And these are the dogs that even the shelter workers are afraid to approach. That will say, let's get them to talk about that a bit. They'll say, this dog is dangerous. This dog is vicious. This dog cannot be rehabilitated. And that's where Kyle steps in. And they'll come in and they'll grab these dogs. This one's been an interesting case. I've been following it in his posts. He's usually able to turn them. And by turn them, I mean, sit there with them, play with them, love on them, put them with another dog. This one presented a lot bigger challenge than usual. And he's actually been kind of like beating himself up about it a little bit on social. But I know that he's making the turn now. Kyle, we were talking shit about you. So
I heard the Cane Corso comment. If I get one more request to train somebody's King Corso, King, if you don't know what car you drive, did you go when you bought your car, you went to 5 different dealerships to compare 5 different electric cars, and then you went online to see where you could get the cheapest lease and what. But when you buy a dog, you see something on TikTok or YouTube, you buy it, and then 2 years later, because your head is bigger than your will, because you have to own these dogs, you have to have a strong will and physical prowess. And I got a message today. This lady wants me to train her King Corso. It's Cane, which is dog in Italian. And then she tells me she's on limited funds. I mean, I got to pay my rent too. I do so much for free. You have no idea. Yogi was with Sherry for a year. I had no idea until she paid tribute to you the other day that Yogi was with her for a year. That's how long that woman was in.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
I had no idea. I thought Yogi was with her for a month or two. And I know that her facility is not cut out for large dogs. And when Sherry told me he was turnkey with no issues, to me, that automatically tells me he has issues, because that's why most rescues give their dogs to me. Sherry, who's one of the only honest people out there, he literally was turnkey. I cannot attribute anything that I did here to his behavior. The way he is with you is the way he came to me. I would love to take credit. You just got a good dog. And I want to use that to circle back to pit bulls. When we do these podcasts, Rick's popular guy. He's going to get 2,000 comments and 1,800 are going to be positive. And then there's going to be someone, I had a pit bull that played with my kids and I had a pet rat. And okay, that's an anomaly. We do this to educate everybody. Look, I have a Corso here that if you look at her wrong, she falls on her back, but it's not indicative of the breed. So I just want to say, look, we're not hating on pit bulls. We just want to make people aware. See, Rick, going back to Rick has 5 pits. 5 pits in a house is not a good idea. But here's the deal. They vary in age. They vary in sex. And he does the most important thing that a pet owner can do. He does something that only professionals do. He micromanages his dogs. And that's why when Rick goes out and gets his chemo and his radiation and he goes on a trip and he comes home, He doesn't come home to a bloodbath like all these rescues you see. Oh my God, they saved that dog. They saved this dog. What they don't show you is cleaning up the mess and putting the dog in the dumpster behind their humane pusher. He's got the right crates. He's got the right equipment. He's got the right trainer behind him. He's got, you got to segregate. You got to micromanage these dogs for life, not for the first year, not for the second year, but it's like having children. As long as you're a parent, even if your child is emancipated at 18 or 21, you are a parent forever. And then your child can choose to walk and take their own path like I did and be stupid and waste your life away. And now I'm made something of myself. Or, you know, dogs don't have that choice. We have to make every decision for them. You know why Rick's one of my favorite adopters? He reaches out to me for what he thinks are the most minuscule little things, but they're not. They're little tiny behaviors that he sees because he's got 5 pits. They're little things. And I tell him that's okay, but that other thing is not, because that other thing is a predecessor to what's going to cause you to get bit. Not because his dogs are human aggressive, just getting in between 2 males. So like Rick has a male who he just spent a fortune on doing double ACL surgery, both knees.
Snoopy.
Yeah, Snoopy, and a luxated patella. That dog's got so much pent up energy. In a week or two, when Dr. Slayton gives him the go, that dog can't play with my dog Rick just took with not Wilson, with
Yogi.
Yogi.
Who? No, the red one.
Yogi.
Oh, Moose.
They need to be segregated.
Yeah.
1-on-1 is the best. 2-on-1 is where you have trouble unless you're in the backyard managing that play group. You can leave males out for 4 days because you got in a car accident, come home, they're going to be fine. When there's a third dog to instigate, that's where it all pops off. That's why Rick, ever since I've known him, has never had anything happen other than these coyotes jump into his backyard, which is an act of God. But he never calls me, oh, dude, he got a bite, because he micromanages his dogs. I actually would wish Rick was even harder on his dogs than he is, but he's not. But he doesn't have to be, because his pack varies. He's got a blind boy. He's got an older girl, older female dogs. They're just, old female dogs are the best dogs in the world. And then his males are really good. Yogi, I gave him, happens to be really good, who's probably not all pit. And then his little red guy,
Moose or Wilson?
Moose has this thing that I always try to explain to people. So Moose plays vocally. So I was explaining to Rick when I brought that we need to teach OG, who's now Yogi, that's the way he plays. So we don't miscommunicate, and he doesn't take that growling like my assistant's dog Sassy. She's also a vocal player. And that's why I didn't leave OG the first day. We had a really nice first meet and greet. We went back, and there's this recognition. Yogi knew the house. He knew Rick's side door, because they don't forget. He knew the side door. He knew where we were entering the yard. I was going to do a third meet and greet, but the first 2 went so well, and Rick is so well versed in Pitbull behavior that on the third time we did the adoption. I was going to do 3 and then leave him. I was thinking, Rick, before we went live, you're known for so many other things. If people ask me, what is Rick Bassman? I always say he's in the fight game. That's how I met you. I honestly don't think people realize how much you've done for this breed. I think people think that
Appreciate that.
People think you need to walk into a shelter, take a dog out, and put it in a home to rescue a dog. Do many dogs Rick has helped by educating people, by volunteering endless hours. I was blown away in the last couple of months getting to know Rick better. All the countries he's been to, including yours, and all the work he's done, not just here, but for huge organizations. He never bashed, even if people are in over their head. I noticed, I asked Rick how a mutual friend of ours is doing. He said, she's in over his good. He doesn't go down that road, because all that does is hurt the animals. When we were talking about bullying, these people are stupid, because at the end of the day, when you talk shit about, for example, someone like you, and then that one person says, because they heard it on the internet, it's true, and then they don't adopt a dog from your sanctuary, they're not just hurting you, they're hurting that dog. Rick always takes the high road. I need to start imploring that that DNA that he has built in. He's a guy that doesn't get bothered by much.
Except I want to beat up people who hurt pit bulls.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Rick,
Can we start a gang or something?
Here's the thing, the 100 largest human beings in the world. That you have something that none of us have. You have a breed of guys that if you got in trouble would step up, because here's the thing, they're not WWE, they're real fight.
Mm-hmm.
I have resources. Yes, I do. My Hells Angels buddies and my Russian mob buddies and my Israeli Mossad buddies and various other gangsters. Yes, it's all good.
And we got Yakuza on the phone now too.
Yes, we do. The head of the Yakuza right there.
What else? Let's talk about pit bulls.
Oh my gosh. Geez, Mina, what do you want to talk about?
Pit bulls. Well, why are you into pit bulls now then?
My rescue is a where's that? My rescue is a behavioral and medical mastiff rescue. I will always have one pit bull in the program to give back to the breed. I started as a pit bull rescue in 1991. I was 19 or 20, and I did pits for about the first 7.5, 8 years. And then I skewed over to mastiffs. And now I wouldn't say I'm exclusively a Cane Corso rescuer, but that's the most unstable breed in the world. And that's what I want to work on. I want to work on breed legislation. I don't even think they should be allowed here, to be honest with you, but the ticking in the news of pit bull attacks has been down. I was talking to Rick about this like a month ago. I said, did you notice? It's just, they're not the it dog anymore. We're American. So we exploit something, and then we came out with the little Colby pit bulls back in the 30s that were 40-45 pounds, and then we moved into the American pit bull terrier, then we moved into the Staffordshire bull terrier, and then we moved into the double XLs, the ones that just got banned in England. Not banned, I'm sorry, they have to wear a muzzle.